All right, guys, this is going to be so much fun today. We are talking with Jessica Zweig. Jessica is an award-winning entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of SimplyBe Agency, which is the premier personal branding firm based in Chicago, but they are serving clients around the globe. She's got an amazing story. You'll love it. She's pursued a lot of dreams, some fun ones, like she went from being a theater major to launching her own magazine. And get this, she grew it so that it could be the largest online magazine for women in Chicago and did that for 7 years running. And then that experience lit a passion for digital marketing, which she realized she was really good at. But she also started to live true to this mantra of being authentic, being true to herself. And all of this kind of set her apart, especially in the whole digital marketing world. So she launched SimplyBe, which has set her up for some incredible success and really has become a movement. In fact, she's got a podcast called the SimplyBe Podcast, and her brand new best-selling book, #1 on Amazon, people, is called Be, a No BS Guide to Increasing Your Self-Worth and Net Worth by Simply Being Yourself. It's a great read. You're going to want to check it out. We'll put all the links to all of this in the show notes, of course. We're going to be talking with Jessica about the importance of going after dreams. You guys know we're going after 1 million dreams this year. She's done that, but we're also going to talk about the importance of being true to yourself as you do that. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Let's get to it. Jessica, welcome to Dream, Think, Do.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitch. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. This is going to be so much fun. So I mentioned it in the intro. I just have to go after this. I love you for being a theater major. God bless you. But you went after launching your own magazine. And I know a lot of Dream Think Doers are totally going to identify with going after dreams that maybe you don't feel fully qualified to do, at least in the beginning. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of that. And what did it take to give yourself permission to do something like that?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. Yes, I went to school for theater. I graduated with a BFA in acting. I graduated and all I knew how to do was act and wait tables. Like that was legitimately what I was qualified for.
It's the combo platter. Yes.
Absolutely. And I was good at both. I was really good at both. And I lived that life for about 5 years.
Yep.
And yet at the core of my sort of passion, always since I was a little girl, I loved to write. I was always a writer at heart.
Yeah.
And, I did the acting thing for a while and it kind of ran its course. I was, decent enough. I was getting good work, but it didn't fuel me.
Yeah.
And I was working at a day job with a girlfriend of mine, and the two of us decided to start this like fashion and food blog. And I remember telling people I was going to, like my parents and my friends, like that I was going to go start a website and become like a business owner. And they all looked at me like I had 5 heads. They were like, what do you know about anything?
My dear. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the looks on my friends and family's faces. They were genuinely concerned and confused. And yet, your question was like, how did you really, find it within you to just do it? And I have to say, and I think probably people who are listening can relate, we get these divine sparks.
Yep.
We get these downloads. They're pings from something deeper and beyond us.
Yep.
And it didn't matter that I had no experience in business or technology or running a website or building a brand. I only had experience cocktail waitressing and being dramatic.
Right.
That was what I had.
Which could serve you well. Yes. I love it.
True. I couldn't ignore it. I could not follow it. And when you really hear that full body alignment, soul spark, it doesn't matter how experienced you are or you are not, because if it's within you, it's meant to come alive. And if you follow it, it will. And you're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn a lot of lessons along the way, but you definitely don't fall as far down as hard as you think you will. In fact, it's like the most expansive experience ever to follow a dream.
Absolutely.
And you learn a whole new capacity inside of yourself. And
I love it. I think we just found the name of the episode. I could not follow it. Right. I think that is so true. I know Dream Think Doers will totally identify with that, to be able to say, there's just this thing I need to do it. And sometimes that's the thing that qualifies you, right? To be able to say, all right, I'm going to start to figure it out. So I love that. And I know in the book, I love how transparent you are in the book, because you tell us it was immediately successful. You had money coming out of your ears. You never had a problem in the world. Which of course, if you read it, you'll know that was not the case at all, right? Like you had to navigate a lot of tough stuff to get this thing to actually stay, to get traction and to grow. How did you keep yourself going in that season? Especially as you're also starting to figure out how to stay true to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I leaned on a lot of resources and support. I was going through a really dark time when I left that magazine to start what is now SimplyBe. That transition moment is where I begin the book. It's really where so much of, what you see today was born from. And that was because I finally decided to focus on the journey within versus the journey without. And I think when we get to be successful enough, we really are sort of chasing a certain feeling of success. And we think it's outside of ourselves. And it's whether it's the big audience or the press hit or the money in the bank or a certain client list, like all of these things are sure validating, but they're not really real. And what's real is what's inside. And I had sort of bypassed my own responsibility in co-creating my life. And so as soon as I started to go within, and what that meant was like hiring a coach and, starting to meditate and read certain books from thought leaders and spiritual, brains, and do retreats and masterminds and immerse myself in personal growth and development. That was really the turning point for me. I mean, I'd always been very conscious and open to that kind of thing, but I had never really prioritized it. And I had never fully, I think I had been playing victim most of my life. And when you take full responsibility for yourself, for all of it, good, bad, ugly, when you recognize I am the reason for this, I'm the co-creator in all of it, it's a moment of empowerment. And that wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it changed my life, and it set me on this course that I have now, been on for quite some time. And, it keeps expanding, and I'm very grateful for that.
I love that. And I love that you can hear the freedom in your voice to be able to say, okay, and that's probably, that's also a part of that, being able to be true to yourself, being authentic, is to know, hey, this is about what happens inside. And oftentimes that's going to cause a ripple effect outside, but to say, okay. Plus I love your journey is such a great illustration of what we talk about with Dream Think Do is that, you went after this experiment of launching the magazine. It didn't go great in the beginning, but you kept experimenting. And in some ways, what you were learning as you went, you started to blog, which took off. Like, I know, one of the great stories in the book was a relational challenge, right? Really launched you into blogging, which taught you so much about what you're doing today. It's like these experiments that if you didn't give yourself that permission to start with the dream pursuit, you wouldn't know all the things that you found and also experience a lot of the success that you've had, which I think is fantastic. So I love that element of your story just continues to play out too. You're continuing to experiment, continuing to learn. I love it. But let's talk about being true to yourself, especially when people are thinking about that dream pursuit, because, they know that sometimes when you go after that dream, just like you being a theater major, wanting to pursue starting a magazine, you may not feel qualified. And that is one of those times where it's even more tempting to try to put on the persona, to try to, convince everybody that you are somebody that you're not, all of those things. So let's talk about that balance of the importance of being true to yourself and also taking those risks and maybe sometimes actually feeling unqualified or disqualified, those kinds of things. How have you navigated some of that? Because I know you keep stretching yourself. So I'm sure there's still temptations to be authentic or feel like, oh gosh, I need to be somebody that I'm not. How do you navigate that?
Well, if you were to look up "fake it till you make it" in the dictionary, you'd see my photo. my picture would be right
Webster's
there.
points to Jessica. Got it. I love it.
True. I knew shit. I knew nothing when I knew nothing when I started this whole journey. And I just remember, like, I I went to school for theater, right? And then I became a business owner, and I never got an MBA. Like I learned, if I didn't know it, I would Google it. And that's how I got my MBA. Okay. On
That's
Google.
exactly
So
right. The
it's the
most
truth.
cost-effective MBA ever, right? Thank you, Google.
You
So
can
true.
really you can kind of learn anything. So
Yes, you can.
I would say that, prior to sort of that crossroad moments that I mentioned earlier, when I started, when I left Cheeky, like you could kind of divide my last sort of decade and a half into two segments, right? Like inauthentic and authentic, like coming from fear, coming from love. And I would say that how I operate to find sort of my edge and my confidence and learning as I like faking it until I truly make it is the same. I take one step in front of the other. I feel into what I don't know, and I figure it out, and I grow more confident, right? But prior to now, when I was sort of in that inauthentic space, I wasn't transparent. Like I thought there was some shame in not knowing. Right. And now it's like, well, if I don't have this thing figured out, or if I'm feeling down about it or lost or alone or whatever it might be, I'm far more clear that I can share that. And that it actually is a sign of strength as an entrepreneur versus a sign of weakness. And that has been a journey of mine to really like own and accept that. But I think that we find our power not overnight, not in a one macro moment of success. We find our power in daily micro actions of just growing our muscle of courage and bravery. And then you just start to trust yourself a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And by the time you've done enough steps, hey, some stuff at that point. You've had 5,000 hours, 10,000 hours. So trusting that in yourself is really part of the game. And it's so huge to just really own all of it, like the power and the weakness. That's the truth. That's really been the sauce for me.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I love how when you do that, obviously others see that. And I think it helps them to give themselves permission to walk in that transparency too. And it's so funny. I think, with personas, when somebody's trying to maintain a persona that they've got it all together, the only one convinced that it might be working is that person, right? Everybody else tends to know. But when somebody's honest and open saying, hey, I don't have the answer, but let's figure it out together. I don't quite know what to do, but we can do this. We'll figure it out. I think that helps to build trust, connection, relationship, all of those things, which I love that that's what you're also showing people in the book. Now, one of the other things that I really wanted to just tap into your expertise on, especially for Dream Think doers this year that are going after a new dream. We're doing this million dream thing, and a lot of people are stepping out into new dreams. And a big part, as you well know, of walking into a big dream is sometimes it's inviting people to come on board, right? And it's in some ways navigating the personal brand of that dream. And I know you help individuals and, companies, organizations navigate their brand. So I wanted to tap into some of your ninja brain when it comes to that personal brand of a dream and say, what are some strategies that as somebody's starting to spread the word about a dream that may or may not make sense to those around them, what are some things that they could tap into or keep in mind as they're starting to talk about that, as they're starting to invite people to be a part of it?
So much. So, clarity will set you free, right? So that's really what branding is an exercise in clarity.
Ooh,
so we have to really understand, what do we want people to know us for? And getting really razor sharp with that message, with that story. And my book will help you do that, by the way. There's a framework in there called the Personal Brand Hologram, where I have the reader, and we take all of our clients through this at SimplyBe Agency with a framework that really helps to distill down those cornerstone topics and what I call brand pillars, because you can't be everything to everyone, or you'll be nothing to no one.
Right.
But at the same time, you can't just talk about the one thing that you are, or you lose kind of that depth, right? And so the hologram is a way to get you there. And to answer your question, I think it's a really great one. So identifying the story, clarity, but then consistency. Because here's the biggest secret about this whole game. Okay. It's a big secret. I'm going to reveal it. Okay. You ready?
Lean in, people, lean in. This is the big one.
You are who you say you are, over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's it. That's it. It's actually so simple. I started my whole entire company. I launched my company and got top tier Fortune 500 clients by basically blogging about personal branding every day for 6 months. And the phone started to ring. Oh, you're the personal branding girl. I want to hire you. I think I need you. What you're saying is interesting. I've never thought about that before. Oh, you're top of mind. You're the first thing in my LinkedIn feed. Like, that is how it works. So pick your story and stick to the script and stay in the narrative, and don't quit, because that is how then people will then associate you with that thing that you want to be known for, the thing you want to pitch. Now that's branding, right? That's messaging. I can talk a lot more, and I do in the book, about strategy and how you actually create content and tactical steps you can take from social media to PR to core content creation. All of it's there to create this sort of amalgamation of a platform, right? That gets you seen.
Right.
But it starts with the brand. I'm a big believer in that. And so I would just implore your audience, start with your story. Your story is the what. You need the what before you can get to the how. Clarity, consistency, king and queen.
I love it. I love it. I think it is so powerful. And I want to go a little bit deeper, because I think that it's amazing. And I was actually blown away by the generosity in the book. Like, a lot of people will say, they might share a theory or two, but you really are laying out the strategies that you use with the agency, and they're all in the book, which is amazing. So it is an incredible book, and you guys are going to want to grab it. But let's talk about that content creation, because as you well know, every dream's going to be a little bit different. But for people that are really wanting people to get on board with that dream, whether it's to launch a business or a nonprofit, or to just, maybe it's even selling an idea and doing a Kickstarter, you're exactly right. It's putting out content so that it's just not a one-off pitch, but it is who you are and it's what you're doing. So what are some of those ways that somebody can start to create content consistently around an idea like that?
Yeah, I love this. There's a couple different ways I say we can talk to the world. Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk to the world in written form, blogs, emails, copy, audio, podcasting right here, video, right? Film, through a multitude of ways of getting video out there. And then in person, which is hard today in COVID, but
I remember that though. In person, so good. Let's mention it just for fun.
We're gonna get back there soon enough.
Exactly right.
Life is long. We will. But so the in-person sort of high touch, right? And those come to life in events and workshops and retreats and masterminds and all sorts of experiences, right? So looking at everything I just mentioned as the opportunity for you to create content around. Content is kind of in everything today.
Yeah.
And so how do you like to talk to the world? If you hate being on camera and you're camera shy, then you never do a video, but you might really love to talk to people. And a podcast is a really powerful platform. You've probably scaled so much through this thing. And then you might not be a talker. You might love to write, and then you might hate to write. So then don't write a blog, but you've got to create what I call in the book. It's actually a chapter in the book too about strategy, your pinnacle content. Pinnacle content is what makes a thought leader, because thought leaders think. That's why they're called thought leaders. And you want to be seen as an expert, and you don't want to just be seen as someone who lives and dies on social. I don't think we're in the business of being influencers here.
Right.
So
we're about getting things done. Yes, exactly.
We're about getting things done. And we're about positioning ourselves as change agents and human beings with full picture stories and businesses and depth. And it's hard to do that in an Instagram caption every day. Like, you've really got to zoom up and think about what's my core thought leadership content that you can then market your business with. And then you utilize social media to drip out and distribute on a daily micro level in tandem with a bunch of other probably fun things you want to share there. But in order to really establish yourself and tell the story in a really rich way, you have to pick your core content, and you got to choose content that lights you up. Otherwise, you're not going to do it, which is why I mentioned, if you hate video, then don't do video. Find your medium and also find your audience. That's a big piece of it. What is your audience? If you're, launching a Kickstarter campaign, if you're in a nonprofit space versus a tech space, there's going to be different forms that work best for you. And you got to obviously do your own research on that, or you can hire SimplyBe and we'll help you with that.
There you go. There it is.
There you go. But that's really building a strategy. You've got to think kind of cross-dimensionally about all of those pieces.
I love it. And I do think it is so, that we live in an era, I don't know about you, but we've got our quirks, we've got our challenges, but I love this era, right? Because we have so many different things at our fingertips that generations past didn't have. And yes, we've got our challenges, but I'll take indoor plumbing, air conditioning, and social media all day long over muskets and outhouses, right? So I love it. But I agree with you that if you are going to spread the word, you've got to figure out the best way that matches up with who you are. Because if you're fighting that every day, it's not like you're not going to stretch, but if you're fighting that medium, whether it's writing, speaking, whatever, video, then you're just not going to do it. But if it does light you up, it is so much easier to stay consistent and to have that passion for your dream come out, right? And I think that's another part of your message around being authentically you, is sometimes people come off as inauthentic because they're using a medium that's not a good fit for them.
Yes. So. And you have to love it. Like you have to, people can feel it, right? It's an energetic experience when you market yourself. It's not just tactics and algorithms, it's energy. And we forget that. Like, I think a lot of people get defeated by, I'm so overwhelmed by what it should look like or what other people are doing, or I don't know how to do this thing called social media, but you know how to do you. Right. So bring it to life in a way that feels really good to you, and stick to the script and you will grow. I know it sounds simple, but it's the truth. So many people don't do that. And then you look at the people who really are winning online, if you will, and they're consistent. They show up in their hearts. They serve. They're generous. They're clear. They're all the things we've been talking about.
Yep, exactly. And I think, to your point earlier, they experiment as they go. Right. I think as a recovering perfectionist, one of my things is I always want to know everything's going to work out, that I'm going to be good at it immediately, which never happens. Right. So it's that whole thing of saying, all right, you're probably not going to be good to start with, but you'll learn as you go. And if you don't start, you'll never get to where you need to go. So I love that has been a part of your whole career trajectory and so much of what you've done. And I really also appreciate so much around the messaging of being true to who we are, right? I think we also live in an era where that's more possible and plausible, but at the same time, I think more comes against it than ever because of, social media, higher levels of comparison, all of that. Everything around our behavior has always existed. There's always been comparison, but now there's probably even more pressure, or at least some people feel more pressure to be who they're not. When you think about that, when you think about being authentically you, where would you say you have to choose it more than other? I love it when somebody writes a book. Like, when I read through the book, I could tell, like, this is something you choose to do. It's not necessarily something you've always been. So you have to choose this. Where do you find yourself? Where is the easiest to go off track for you as far as being authentically you? And how do you get yourself back there?
Oh my gosh, what a real-time question.
Yeah, you're in the midst of a major book launch. Anything there?
Wow, like I'm going to be super real with you. Yeah. I mean, I am not one to compare myself, right? Like I have been on a journey of, self-love, self-affirmation, and self-celebration to really own my lane and to not compare myself to people, because no one is me and I'm not going to be them. And that's not a tragedy. That's a miracle. Yeah. The thing about launching a book is that there's so much pressure. Yeah. There's all these eyes on you. There's all of these expectations, and you want it to be successful, but you really don't want to say out loud how successful you really want it to be.
That's right.
because that's a risk in and of itself
Yep.
to not make it or to fail. And the book, Be a No BS Guide to Increasing Your Self-Worth and Your Net Worth by Simply Being Yourself is my lesson. I am the student of this work as much as I am the teacher.
Yeah.
And I just think that's what we come here to do, is we come here to teach what we're here to uniquely learn. And I am learning that in real time. Like, my worth isn't dependent on the net sales of my book or whether or not I hit a list. The worth of my book is going to be determined based on how many lives I touch, how many people's worlds change because they're now empowered with knowing how to market themselves and live their dreams. Like, that's why I wrote the book. And I feel like people forget their own magic, and we get so caught up in what people think of us, or what the next person is doing, or will we be judged, or will we be revered? Like, these are the things that don't really matter. And I think when I let myself get super still, which hasn't been much because I'm in, book launch mode.
Right.
But when I really allow myself to drop in, Mitch, and get some of my own stillness and peace, I'm always reminded of that truth. I'm always reminded that I'm here to serve and not to necessarily gain. And so that is really a work in progress for me. And I talk about that in the book very candidly as well.
And I so appreciate you being real with us. I mean, obviously you wrote the book on it, but that sometimes the very thing you write the book on is sometimes still challenging. And I just so appreciate you putting it out there. But also, and guys, in the book, you will see it. And again, the book is called Be a No BS Guide to Increasing Your Self-Worth and Your Net Worth by Simply Being Yourself. Go grab it, because Jessica's been real with us here, but she's super real in the book, but she does really give powerful strategies. She's incredibly generous with what she covers. And if you've got, again, that heart to be able to reach the world with a dream, with a business, with a nonprofit, just with your own messaging, this is going to help. So I love it. So Jessica, I always love to say, what's one last pearl of wisdom? If somebody's there, like maybe they're feeling that thing, that call that I cannot not do it. What's one last piece of wisdom you want to send them out with?
Oh man, you are not here by accident on planet Earth. You are here on assignment, and we live in an infinite universe, endless time and space, and you get a microcosm of life called you, and this vessel called you, for about 60, 70, 80, 90 years if you're lucky.
Right.
So do something with it. Don't take that for granted. You are here for a reason, to evolve the planet that we're on with your unique imprint. And so really remember that to the best of your ability every day, that you can't not. It's your assignment. It's your responsibility.
Could have said it better. That is absolutely beautiful. Jessica, thanks so much for hanging out with us. What's the best way for people to find you? We'll put all of it in the show notes, but what's the best place for people to go to find out more and to grab the book?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Jessica Zweig. I'm jessicazweig.com. SimplyBeAgency.com is where my business lives. And you can buy the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can get it at Target. You can get it at your indie bookshops. You can get it anywhere. Books
everywhere. You are everywhere. I love it. Well, thanks so much for being so generous and doing what you're doing. You are making the world a better place, my friend.
Thank you. You are too.